Greatest heavyweight bouts of all time unfolded in Zaire, Africa. George Foreman, 25 years old, hard-hitting and undefeated, entered the ring against 32-year-old Muhammad Ali. Ali was touting his new strategy known as the rope-a-dope. Charlie Steiner remembers the fight.
It was 20 years ago, 2 months after Richard Nixon had resigned in disgrace. For the then 25-year-old George Foreman, it was easily 30 pounds ago. He was undefeated. His opponents, more often than not, lasted no more than a couple of rounds. The then villainous Foreman was an overwhelming favorite to beat and beat up Muhammad Ali in Kinshasa, Zaire.
The only time I was ever absolutely convinced he was going to lose was to George Foreman in Zaire. I mean, I knew that he did not have a chance then. I was afraid, like many others were, that he would be hurt by Foreman.
But Ali pulled a stunt that would stun Foreman and shock the boxing world. The rope-a-dope. It was something Ali, a notoriously lazy fighter in the gym, would do in sparring all the time. Lean against the ropes and let the other guy hit him, generally about the arms. But this ploy couldn't possibly work against the powerful Foreman, or could it?
Punches on the arm weren't hurting, punches on the glove weren't hurting. He wasn't getting hit. George thought he was killing him.
Ali played the role of the punching bag, convinced Foreman's punches landing mostly on his arms would eventually wear down the bigger and stronger man. This was not a strategy devised by Ali's corner.
That was strictly an innovation by Muhammad. I had no idea he was going to do that. What worried me, he was going to fall out of the ring.
I hit him. Boom, boom, boom. And after I gave him everything I had, you know what he said? Then all you got, George.
That was all he had. In the 8th round, Ali came off the ropes and knocked George Foreman out. 20 years later, Foreman admits he never had any desire for a rematch with Muhammad Ali.
You think I wanted him again? No way. I'm not ashamed of that. Look, the guy whipped me. I mean, he really whipped me. And I got proof. I got a film of my line on the canvas. And believe me, I didn't just jump on the canvas. He knocked me there.
But in the last 7 years, fighting men generally about half his age, oftentimes taking a terrible beating in the process, the only parts of George Foreman's body that have been on the canvas have been his feet.
And this Saturday night from Las Vegas, 45-year-old George Foreman faces WBA and IBF champ Michael Moore. ESPN begins coverage this Wednesday with reports from both camps.
I just don't understand. I don't have any trouble putting heavyweights to sleep. But there's one lightweight I can never get to go down.
Time for bed.
No.
Bed?
No.
Let's go to bed.
No.
Please.
No.
Come on.
No. I want
Watch Michael Moore defend his heavyweight championship against George Foreman live, only on HBO.
For Michael Moore, Saturday's fight against George Foreman will be his first defense of his heavyweight title since he became the champ by beating Evander Holyfield in a 12-round decision last April. On hand for today's pre-fight show in Las Vegas was our Charlie Steiner.
Well, Linda, something tells me I'm not on the Sports Center set anymore. In fact, we're at the MGM Grand here in Las Vegas. And in the ring behind me on Saturday night, George Foreman will be the oldest challenger for the heavyweight championship of the world in history, 45 and a half years old. He's, of course, going to be taking on Michael Moore, the IBF and WBA champion. And today, their final press conference before Saturday night's fight. George Foreman, the showman and the businessman in this production. As far as Michael Moore is concerned, he is a reluctant showman, but not a reluctant warrior.
Back in, I think we're in Vegas, George had asked me to take my glasses off. My glasses are off, you see my eyes. We know what you're about, George. You don't know nothing about me. You'll find out Saturday. Thank you.
What little electricity took place during the press conference came off the podium when one of Michael Moore's sparring partners, Everett Bigfoot Martin, started giving Big George a lot of lip.
Preacher cannot do what you're doing. Nothing. Don't act crazy with these people. The preachers cannot do that. One thing you know, the Lord watches you.
Sit down, everyone.
George Foreman, forever the preacher man. Michael Moore thinks George Foreman is forever the con man. Coming up a little bit later on this edition of Sports Center, we'll sit down with George Foreman and he'll tell you why he's so reluctant to retire from the ring. That's it for now. Let's send it back to Sports Center. Linda?
For a fraud and a con man, the challenger calls himself in the best shape of his second professional life. Michael Moorer holds 2 belts. George Foreman, the memories of the championship. Charlie Steiner is in Las Vegas, where the 2 men will shortly weigh in for Saturday. Charles.
Bob, you are looking at the Grand Garden Arena, where on Saturday night, George Foreman, at the age of 45 years and 11 months, will take on the champion of the world, Michael Moorer, who at the age of 27 will be defending his title for the first time. Before we get to the weigh-in, I want to show you some very interesting numbers. Michael Moorer, in his last 5 fights, has not weighed any more than 218 pounds. Against Holyfield 7 months ago, he weighed 214. It has been 6 years since George Foreman weighed under 250 for a fight. That was early in his comeback. 256 or more in his last 5 fights, dating back to Evander Holyfield back in April of 1991. Now let's go down to the stage. My good friend Al Bernstein standing by for the weigh-in. Al?
Well, thank you, Charlie. We welcome all our ESPN viewers and also the crowd here at the MGM to the official weigh-in of Michael Moorer's first defense of his heavyweight title. And we will begin by weighing in the challenger, a gentleman who is, in fact, the former heavyweight champion of the world, George Foreman. George Foreman weighs in at 250 pounds. And now the man who holds the IBF and WBA heavyweight championship, Michael Moorer. Michael Moorer tips the scales at 222 pounds. And now we chat with George Foreman, who is in the role of challenger today. 250, George, is a weight that a lot of people were rumoring you to be at. Does that feel comfortable for you?
Well, I heard the rumor, and I decided to eat up to it.
So you had to get up to 250,
I had to go up to 250, believe me.
Well, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Some say that Michael Moorer is the champion today largely because he's got that left-handed style. It gave Evander Holyfield so much trouble. What about you? What impact will that have on your fight plan?
Well, whatever the reason, he's champion of the world, and that's a high position to hold. And it's an awful higher position to hold as the challenger, because I can make history by making the thing change hands. He's a wonderful guy. I don't mean no shot in anger. I just want to go out there, show the world that 45 and 55 is not a death sentence. We can do anything we want to do. Goodbye.
All right. Oh, George Foreman hasn't lost his touch in getting a crowd going. Let's talk to Michael Moorer, the heavyweight champion. Michael, you weighed in at a weight that I'm sure is comfortable for you. Let me ask you a question. People say that the first defense feels different than when you're challenging for the title. How has this felt different to you?
Really hasn't felt different. As long as you keep everything in perspective, you have to know what you have to do and do it the right way.
Okay. What about movement? People have suggested, and you've talked a little bit about it, how important movement may be against George Foreman. Is it a key for you?
Well, it's a key in any fight. As long as you train and know what you have to do, it'll be done.
You happy to be defending your title the first time?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Good luck to you.
Thank you very much.
It's Michael Moorer, the champion, George Foreman, the challenger. Send it back to Charlie.
Okay, Al, so now let's take a look at the tail of the tape. 2 very interesting numbers. Michael Moorer is 8 pounds heavier than he was just 7 months ago when he fought Evander Holyfield. George Foreman is as light as he has been in the last 6 years. It will be very interesting to see how the betting odds will shift over the next few minutes. At the moment, Michael Moorer is a 3.5 to 1 favorite. Coming up a little bit later tonight after the BC Louisville football game on the late edition of SportsCenter, we will profile George Foreman. For now, that's it. Charlie Steiner after the weigh-in live here at the MGM Grand, sending it back to SportsCenter. Bob?
Okay, Charlie, we will have complete coverage, by the way, of the fight with round-by-round scoring Saturday night during our CFA football and live post-fight coverage from Las Vegas on Saturday evening.
Well, back before Michael Moorer rested the WBA and IBF heavyweight championships from Evander Holyfield in April, Moorer's trainer, Tony Atlas, put down a little dough on the roulette wheel, 35 blank, anticipating Moorer's 35th win without a loss. The number came up. Moorer went on to win. Well, this time, Atlas put money on 36. It came up again. But challenger George Foreman is planning to break both the bank and Moorer if he can. Our Nick Charles is live in Las Vegas at the MGM Grand for the fight. Nick, what's going on?
Fred, I'm going to find that roulette wheel, I'll tell you that.
That's right.
We're at the MGM Grand. This is the Grand Garden, in fact. This is the site of Saturday night's fight. 2 nights from now, it'll be Michael Moore against George Foreman. Now, this fight has not captured or fired the imagination of the public, but I do sense an air of intrigue beginning to build here in the desert, and I'll tell you why. What happened today on the scales and what that revealed is really what sparked interest that this could be a competitive fight. George Foreman was first on the scales. He took stage first, and when he stripped down to his shorts, he caused a mild sensation because he looked almost sleek. And at 250 pounds, Foreman's the lightest he's been in 6 years. It's only weight, but it's an indication. Foreman's gotten serious for this one. Now, the champion was next, and when the scales settled, it read 222. Michael Moore has supposedly trained well for his first title defense, but he's 8 pounds heavier than when he won the heavyweight championship against Evander Holyfield in April. Now, when we look at the tail of the tape, though, the most significant statistic that pops out is this. Michael Moore is in his prime at 27. George Foreman will be 46 years old in 2 months. In fact, it was 20 long years ago that Foreman last held the title. George was a vastly different person then, but what Big George now at 45 realizes is that this is his best and last shot at recapturing what was his 2 decades ago.
Michael Moore, he's going to run, he's going to hide, and he's going to hold, but I'm going to knock him out because I've decided that after these fights, nobody understands that I've won 1 fight. I've won the next round. They don't give the fights to me, they give it to the cowards. I'm going to knock this coward out.
Sounds like George Foreman is mad as heck and not going to take it anymore. Is this then a man whose seemingly endless careers come full circle? First, he was the dour heavyweight champion in the early 70s. Then he came back in the late 80s as the lovable, huggable, middle-aged guy, always good for a laugh.
I got bigger feet than Evander Holyfield's body.
And if I don't fight often, I'll eat up this planet.
Hey, pop, pop, pop. All I got to do is brush my teeth and be me.
I'll put you between 2 slices of bread and eat you up there.
But the jokes never translated into a title. So now the ever-ready smile's been replaced by resolve. George Foreman is 45, no longer a novelty, and he knows he'd better replace flash with substance.
There's nothing else to say anymore. Now everybody expecting George Foreman to get out there and do some fighting. They used to have some punchlines that the world had not heard. Now everybody's heard them over and over. Now they don't want to hear about, hey, I'm going to jump out of the ring and have a cheeseburger. They know I'm going to have the cheeseburgers anyway. Now I got to get in there and fight. This is all about going up there and getting this title.
But why should things be different now? Foreman's last fight was a tired-looking loss to Tommy Morrison 17 months ago. Hardly the performance to change the opinion of critics who say George is too old, too fat, and too slow to be taken seriously. Foreman predictably disagrees. While he allowed us a glimpse at him training, he's run virtually a closed camp, but looks in shape and vows to be a different fighter Saturday night.
But I want to throw a lot of shots, and I want to go out there and be the aggressor. And in case the judges pull something, be ready to throw punches and throw punches and throw punches and throw punches. So I have to have a certain body for that. And this body is ready for it.
Fighters usually choreograph fights in their minds before they happen. Some think of best and worst case scenarios. George Foreman, though, thinks only 2 things can happen Saturday night, and both of them are good.
Sometimes I think that when the bell rings, Michael Moore comes out at George Foreman, and I knock him out. Then sometimes I see the bell ring and Michael Moore running from George Foreman, and I catch him and knock him out.
Well, the odds say Father Time's caught up with Big George Foreman. He's a 4-to-1 underdog, but the buzz around here is that he'll never have a better chance than now to recapture again that heavyweight title. So he's going to go for it and try to prove everybody clearly wrong on Saturday, Fred.
Nick, in your package there, we could clearly see the difference between George Foreman a couple of years ago and George today. Slimmer, trimmer. But what does this mean as far as his strategy is concerned?
Well, you know, I remembered Muhammad Ali against Larry Holmes here in Las Vegas in 1980, and he was 218. He was sleek, but he was a shell of a fighter. We don't know if George Foreman trained really well or if he just went on a good diet and dropped some pounds, and that's going to be the crucial difference. Will he fight and pressure more for 2 minutes of the 3 minutes of every round? He can't coast and try to grab and mug and just do that. He's got to either pile up points or go out and hit him, but he's not going to be able to psych him out, I don't think, that way. So the big thing is condition. You got to be in condition to go at least a minute and a half to 2 of the three minutes of every round to win some rounds or to knock this guy out. You got to go out and pressure, and you got to be in shape to do that. He looks good, but we're not going to know until Saturday, Fred.
Okay, Nick, but you're going to be there throughout Saturday, so we'll talk to you again tomorrow, and then we'll get your prediction. Remember, 36 black.
Okay,
thanks, Nick.
We're getting ready to rumble in Las Vegas. Michael Moore making the first defense of his WBA and IBF heavyweight titles Saturday night against Big George Foreman. Tonight, the weigh-in, the 27-year-old Moore checked in at 222 pounds, while the 45-year-old Foreman checked in at an even 250 pounds. And for Big George, the preacher man, the sermon remains the same.
I just want to go out there, show the world that 45 and 55 is not a death sentence. We can do anything we want to do. Goodbye.
All right. 48 hours till Foreman v. Moore, and today's excitement in Las Vegas, that expression of that ancient ritual of boxing, the only sport in which you get applause for weighing something. Our Charlie Steiner checks the scales. Welcome back to the MGM Grand here in Las Vegas. We're on Thursday afternoon. Some surprising news at the weigh-in for Saturday night's heavyweight championship fight between Michael Moore and George Foreman. Michael Moore weighed in heavier than expected. George Foreman weighed in lighter than expected.
250. George Foreman weighs in at 250 pounds. And now the man who holds the IBF and WBA heavyweight championship, Michael Moore. Michael Moore tips the scales at 222 pounds. 250, George, is a weight that a lot of people were rumoring you to be at. Does that feel comfortable for you?
Well, I heard the rumor, and I decided to eat up to it.
So you had to get up to 250,
I had to go up to 250, believe me.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Some say that Michael Moore is the champion today largely because he's got that left-handed style. It gave Evander Holyfield so much trouble. What about you? What impact will that have on your fight plan?
Well, whatever the reason, he's champion of the world, and that's a high position to hold. And it's an awful higher position to hold as the challenger because I can make history by making the thing change hand. He's a wonderful guy. I don't mean no shot in anger. I just want to go out there, show the world that 45 and 55 is not a death sentence. We can do anything we want to do. Goodbye.
All right. Well, George Foreman hasn't lost his touch in getting a crowd going. Let's talk to Michael Moore, the heavyweight champion. Michael, you weighed in at a weight that I'm sure is comfortable for you. Let me ask you a question. People say that the first defense feels different than when you're challenging for the title. How has this felt different to you?
It really hasn't felt different. As long as you keep everything in perspective, you have to know what you have to do and do it the right way.
Okay. What about movement? People have suggested, and you've talked a little bit about it, how important movement may be against George Foreman. Is it a key for you?
Well, it's a key in any fight. As long as you train and know what you have to do, it'll be done.
You happy to be defending your title the first time?
Oh, absolutely.
So some surprising news indeed at the weigh-in. Michael Moore, 8 pounds heavier than he was when he fought for the title against Evander Holyfield back in April of 1994. George Foreman at 250 pounds is the lightest he has been in almost 6 years. Al Bernstein joining us now. Were you as surprised as I was?
Well, I sure was surprised that Michael Moore's weight, 222 pounds, I think is very heavy for him in this fight. This is, after all, a fight in which for the first time as a heavyweight, I believe, and many others do as well, he needs to be moving in this fight. Give some lateral movement to George Foreman. I don't think that kind of weight will help him do it.
And George Foreman at 250 pounds is lighter than he's been in a good long time.
Oh, he's a sliver of his former self. George Foreman, we expected to come in lighter. Some thought he might come in even as light as 245 pounds. His brother Roy Foreman thought so when he talked to me the other day. But 250 is a good weight for George Foreman.
And George Foreman is in terrific shape. We saw him in Houston a couple of weeks ago. He sparred 8 rounds, had 10 seconds of rest between each round. His cardiovascular system is still extraordinary. Coming up a little bit later on this edition of Sports Center, we will sit down with George and find out why it's so difficult for him to give it all up. For Al Bernstein, Charlie Steiner, sending it back to Sports Center.
Boxers could not be further apart in age, in weight, in personality. George Foreman plays the PR game to the hilt. Michael Moore, the champion, plays it much closer to the vest. The hype, the hysteria, not a part of his game. He sat down with Charlie Steiner and Al Bernstein in Las Vegas.
Welcome back to Las Vegas. Roughly 24 hours before the heavyweight championship of the world, Michael Moore and George Foreman. Al Bernstein is joining me here, as well as the heavyweight champion. Michael, these are the roughest 24 hours because all the work is done. What do you do to occupy your time?
Relax, sit in my room, relax, listen to music. I listen to a lot of slow music to relax me.
Is this the hardest part? I mean, are you dwelling on the fight? What goes through your head in the final 24 hours?
I try not to put anything in my mind. I'm relaxed. I'll talk to my son a few times, watch television, play cards.
Yesterday, there was the weigh-in, and you came in a little heavier than some people thought you might, a little heavier than you were for Holyfield, 222. Did that please you, or was it something you were surprised at?
It pleased me. I did everything I was supposed to do in training camp, so the weight wasn't a problem. The way I look at it, I'm a heavyweight, so I don't have to make no weight. As long as I'm comfortable with the speed, the power.
So you don't feel that'll hinder your mobility at all? It's gonna be fine?
Not at all.
You had surgery on the left hand immediately after the Holyfield fight. How did that impact on your training at all, or did it?
It really, no, there was a couple times where I thought it would be a problem, but it never turned out to be a major problem. I did everything I was supposed to do. I boxed over 100 rounds, and everything was good.
George Foreman is a guy who I think he's seen your fights, and he knows he's 45 years old, and he, like we all do as a matter of fact, and he also knows that probably to get at you, he's going to have to come out pretty aggressively in this fight. Would you expect that in the first couple rounds? Would you expect a real powerful attack from Foreman?
I expect it because he has nothing to lose here. He wants to come out and try to dictate the fight, which is not going to happen. But I'll be ready for it.
Did it bother you at all yesterday at the weigh-in when he was introduced? There was a resounding cheer, and when you were introduced, there were more than a smattering of boos. When you hear that, how do you react?
I probably didn't pay no attention.
Will you tomorrow night when you step into the ring? Does that bother you one way or the other?
That doesn't dictate a fight to me. Doesn't win a fight neither.
What does?
Me knowing what I have to do and doing it.
The last word from the heavyweight champion of the world, Michael Moore. Thank you, Michael.
You're welcome.
That was, in fact, the final interview before the fight on Saturday night from the heavyweight champion. For Al Bernstein and Michael Moore, Charlie Steiner, sending it back to SportsCenter.
Well, thanks, Nancy. Earlier tonight, I was with George Foreman down at this Race and Sportsbook, and we were watching his Houston Rockets play. And George is usually the first guy, good for a laugh and a joke. And I asked him, though, this time, are you nervous? And he said, yes, he is. And that really is his edge. He's dead serious for this one. Michael Moore is serious also, but what else is new? You know, he's an enigma, quiet and fenced away, a man of few public words. So just who is this heavyweight champion who happens to own the most coveted, richest individual prize in sports?
Michael Moore now has what every fighter dreams of having, a heavyweight championship. In fact, he's got 2 of them. But does he have recognition?
There's a lot of people who don't know me. They heard of me but don't know me. There's a lot of people who, Michael Moore, I heard that name before. You know, so what? The people who I surround myself with know. I know. That's all that matters.
Moore says it used to bother him a lot how the public perceived him, but no more. And he knows making 45-year-old George Foreman his first title defense won't enhance his image.
If I win, you beat an old man. If I lose, you weren't anyway. Can't win either way you go. Self-satisfaction. That's it.
His trainer, Teddy Atlas, though, thinks Foreman is exactly what Moore needs now. He's safe and he's a name.
This fight will solve some of that problem. He's fighting a very recognizable guy, whether people say he's passed himself or not. The guy is a marquee name. The guy is a very visible guy. He's on commercials all the time. And after this fight, Michael will be more recognized.
But if Moore is now either an enigma or an unknown, he is definitely the most focused he's ever been. And a key reason is Atlas, who entered the picture before the Holyfield fight that made Moore a champion. He's a demanding trainer interested only in improvement and unafraid to confront the champion and run the risk of making him do what he doesn't feel like doing.
Because human nature, when you're under pressure, human nature, when you're the one who has to do it and you're under pressure and you're left alone, you're probably going to find ways to avoid it to a degree. And a trainer, if he doesn't compromise himself, takes those degrees away and doesn't allow you to lie to yourself.
While Atlas and Moore both respect the skills Foreman still possesses, they feel the best way to nullify what he does is to execute their game plan and not obsess about what a 45-year-old has up his aging sleeve.
I'm not worried about what he does. As long as I'm sharp that night and do what I've been taught to do and what I worked on for 2 months in a gym, I'll be fine.
Michael Moore says he respects everybody, but perhaps what's been most essential to his ascent to the top is that he respects himself. And if he doesn't take the gifts he has for granted, he could remain on top a long time.
Well, Michael Moore promises not to be intimidated. He proved his self-assurance to me 6.5 months ago about a mile down the Las Vegas Strip when he won the heavyweight championship. He's still the clear favorite, but the odds are dropping, but I like him to retain his belt in his first title defense tomorrow night. Speaking of tomorrow night, we'll be back before the fight at 7:30 Eastern Time with a pre-fight analysis, and then post-fight analysis, interviews with the winner and the loser after the fight. So we'll see you then, but right now let's go back to Atlanta and you, Nancy.
From Las Vegas on HBO, Michael Moore's first defense of the heavyweight championship he won from Evander Holyfield last May. It's a theatrical piece of heavyweight business. Moore grants a title shot to 45-year-old former champion George Foreman, the man who lost the title to Muhammad Ali 20 years ago and has spent the last 7 years trying to get it back. They'll battle at the MGM Grand, George Foreman versus Michael Moore for the heavyweight championship of the world, coming up tonight on HBO.